All right, so welcome to part 3, Technology and Change in the Late 19th Century. Part 1, we looked at imperialists and nationalists. Part 2, we looked at the Boer War. And in part 3, we're going to look at technology and change in the late 19th century, along with urbanization and industrialization. So there were many things going on in Canada. A very famous Canadian, Alexander Graham Bell. Unfortunately, he didn't finish his career or livelihood in Canada, but he was very influential. Ask yourself, where have you heard the name Bell before? Where do you see it all the time, or in most places? Well, Bell, MTS, is named after Alexander Graham Bell. He was one of many people that invented the telephone. You'll notice that one is bolded and underlined because kind of a common misconception is that he was the one that invented it. He was vital, he was crucial to it and important, but he was not the sole person that invented it. What made him separate and distinct and special is he was extremely good at marketing and promoting the telephone. He knew what it was, and he knew how people would grab onto it. And that's what makes him special. And here is a picture of Bell using one of his phones and showing it off. And this was revolutionary because back then, the quickest way of communicating was through telegraph. So it's kind of Morse code. One person would be sending signals, a code for different letters. Another person miles away or kilometers away would be taking that code, decoding it, and translating it back into letters. That was very good in terms of sending messages back and forth, but it was very difficult to have a conversation. But the telephone revolutionized all that. Now you can have a conversation at the same time without having to write anything down. And it was revolutionary. And if you follow the link, it'll take you to a page from history.com all about Alexander Graham Bell. Check it out when you have a chance. So I'm just going to close that there. Awesome. All right. Oops. What about urbanization and industrialization? Well, Canada was going from a very rural, very kind of farm-based economy or farm-based focus to now people are moving into cities, growing into larger cities. Well, you have more people in the cities, you have more potential workers. And so a lot of factories that require a lot of workers sprung up. And so that's what urbanization means. Urbanization is the growth of cities where people will come into cities and it would get larger and larger and larger. Industrialization means going from kind of just a farm-based model to, well, more factories, putting in a lot of machinery that helps make things better, make things faster, make things not necessarily safer, but it makes it more efficient. So a person can make, let's say, 1 shoe per hour. Well, this machine can make 10 shoes per hour. It's become industrialized. So by 1900, more than 5 million people lived in Canada. And most of those are in cities and towns, very similar to how it is nowadays. The growth of towns is called urbanization. And by the 1920s, more than half of Canada lived in a town. And so it was more and more people, just like now. What happens with industrialization? Well, there are more jobs. More jobs means more money for those workers. More money for those workers to spend and to use means other jobs and industries can come along. So thousands of jobs in mining, pulp, paper were created. The railroad created hundreds and thousands, if not thousands of jobs. Shipbuilding, which we're going to look at later on, also became a huge industry, especially in fishing, as well as in defense. And so these were all part of the urbanization and industrialization of Canada.